A stormy afternoon, the rain hammered down on the Hudson River Parkway with the kind of fury that only New York City storms could deliver. Natalie Brooks gripped her steering wheel tightly as she navigated her aging Toyota Camry through the downpour. The windshield wipers worked overtime, but visibility remained terrible. She was already late for a client meeting in Manhattan, and now this weather was making everything worse. Then she heard it. The unmistakable sound of a tire going flat. The rhythmic thumping grew louder with each rotation until Natalie had no choice but to pull onto the shoulder. She sat there for a moment, watching the rain sheet across her windshield, and let out a frustrated scream that nobody could hear. "Of course this happens today," she muttered, reaching for her phone. No signal, because why would anything go right when everything was already going wrong? Natalie had changed a tire before. She was proud of her independence, of not needing to call someone every time life threw a challenge her way. Growing up with a father who owned 3 successful restaurants in Brooklyn had taught her the value of hard work and self-reliance. But changing a tire in a downpour on a busy highway was not ideal. She grabbed her raincoat from the back seat, pulled it on, and stepped out into the storm. Within seconds, she was soaked. The rain found every gap in her supposedly waterproof jacket. Her dark curly hair plastered itself to her face as she made her way to the trunk. The near miss that was when she heard the screeching tires. Natalie looked up just in time to see a sleek black Tesla Model S hydroplaning directly toward her. Time seemed to slow down. She could see the panic on the driver's face through the rain-streaked windshield. She could see the car spinning, completely out of control. Her body moved before her brain could process the danger. She dove backward, landing hard on the wet grass of the embankment. The Tesla came to a stop mere inches from her Camry. Its front bumper crumpled from where it had clipped the guardrail. For a few heartbeats, everything was silent except for the rain and her own ragged breathing. Then the driver's door opened and a man stumbled out. He was tall, probably over 6 feet, with dark hair now dripping wet, and wearing what looked like a very expensive suit that was rapidly getting ruined. "Are you okay?" he shouted over the rain, running toward her. "I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop. The road was like ice, and I just lost control." Natalie lay there in the grass, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She had almost died. This stranger had almost killed her. And yet, as he reached down to help her up, all she felt was overwhelming relief that they were both alive. An unexpected embrace. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was just the human need for connection after a brush with death. But when Jordan Whitmore pulled Natalie Brooks to her feet, she threw her arms around him and held on tight. "Thank you for not hitting me," she said, her voice muffled against his wetsuit jacket. "I thought I was going to die." Jordan stood frozen for a moment, clearly surprised by the embrace from a complete stranger. Then his arms came around her, and he held her just as tightly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? Do we need to call an ambulance?" "I'm okay," Natalie said, finally pulling back to look at him properly. Even soaked and shaken, he was handsome. Strong jawline, concerned brown eyes, and an expression of genuine distress about what had almost happened. Just scared. Really, really scared. "Me too," Jordan admitted, running a hand through his wet hair. "I've never lost control of a car like that. The rain just came out of nowhere and suddenly I was spinning." They stood there in the rain, both breathing hard, both looking at each other like they were trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of bizarre dream. Then Natalie laughed. It started as a small chuckle, but grew into full-blown laughter that bordered on hysteria. "I'm sorry," she gasped, wiping rain and tears from her face. "It's not funny. None of this is funny. But we're standing in the rain, having nearly died, and I still need to change my tire." Jordan looked at her car, then at his damaged Tesla, and started laughing too. "I don't think either of us is going anywhere without a tow truck." Coffee and connection. An hour later, they sat in a small diner off the highway, both wrapped in scratchy towels the owner had provided. Their cars were being loaded onto tow trucks, and they had each called their respective insurance companies. Now they just had to wait. "I'm Jordan," he said, wrapping his hands around a steaming cup of coffee. "Jordan Whitmore." "Natalie Brooks," she replied, doing the same. The warmth felt wonderful after standing in the rain. Thank you for not turning me into a pancake on the Hudson River Parkway.
Jordan winced.
Can we please never mention that again? I'm going to have nightmares about this for months. Fair enough! Natalie studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. So, Jordan Whitmore, what do you do when you're not hydroplaning into innocent people? I work in real estate, he said, and something in his tone made Natalie think there was more to it than that. Mostly commercial properties in Manhattan. What about you? Graphic designer? Freelance, which means I make logos for people who think they can pay me in exposure and experience. She smiled. Your suit looks expensive. I'm guessing you don't have that problem. The suit was expensive, Jordan corrected with a rueful smile. Past tense. I think it's ruined now. They talked for 2 hours. Natalie learned that Jordan loved classic jazz music, but couldn't play an instrument to save his life. That he had wanted to be a teacher, but ended up in business because of family expectations. That he had a scar on his hand from a childhood accident involving a bicycle and a very unfortunate tree. Jordan learned that. Natalie talked to her plants by name and insisted they grew better because of it. That she had an irrational fear of pigeons that stemmed from an incident in Central Park when she was 6. That she could do perfect impressions of her 3 younger brothers and frequently used this skill to embarrass them at family gatherings. Can I see you again? Jordan asked when the tow truck driver finally called to say the cars were ready. Under better circumstances, maybe without the near-death experience. Natalie felt butterflies in her stomach. She hadn't felt this way about anyone in years. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers. Jordan insisted on paying for both the coffee and the tow truck, despite Natalie's protests. It's the least I can do after almost killing you, he said with that crooked smile that made her heart skip. In the cab ride home to her Brooklyn apartment, Natalie couldn't stop smiling. Maybe the flat tire hadn't been such a disaster after all. Maybe it was fate. Maybe this was the beginning of something special, the family announcement show. Arrived home to find 17 missed calls from her mother and a text message that made her blood run cold. Emergency family meeting. Come home now. Your father and I need to talk to you about something important. Natalie's good mood evaporated instantly. Emergency family meetings were never good. The last one had been when her grandfather had his heart attack. Before that, her brother had dropped out of college. She took another cab to her parents' brownstone in Park Slope, her mind racing through possibilities. Was someone sick? Was the restaurant in trouble? Had something happened to one of her brothers? The house was full when she arrived. Her parents, her grandmother, her uncle Antonio, and her Aunt Patricia all sat in the living room wearing serious expressions. Sit down. Natalie, her mother Caroline said, patting the sofa beside her. What's going on? Is everyone okay? Natalie asked, her earlier good mood completely gone now. Everyone's fine, her father Thomas assured her. But we need to talk to you about your future. Natalie felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. This is about marriage again, isn't it? Her parents exchanged glances. Her mother took a deep breath. The Whitmore family has been friends with our family for generations. They own half the commercial real estate in Manhattan, and they're looking to expand into Brooklyn. A partnership between our families would be beneficial for everyone. You mean a business deal? You mean a marriage, her father said gently. Their son Jordan is a good man. Successful, educated, from a good family. Your mother and I think you two would be perfect together. The room started spinning. Natalie gripped the arm of the sofa, trying to process what she was hearing. Jordan Whitmore. You want me to marry Jordan Whitmore? You know him? Her mother's face lit up. That's wonderful. This will make everything so much easier. Natalie's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. Hi, it's Jordan from the coffee shop. Just wanted to make sure you got home safely. And to apologize again for the whole almost killing you thing. Would you like to have dinner this weekend? She stared at the message, then at her parents, then back at the message. The universe had to be playing a cosmic joke on her. The charming man who had almost run her over, who had bought her coffee and made her laugh, who had asked for her number with genuine interest in his eyes. That man was supposed to be her arranged husband. I need some air, Natalie said, standing abruptly. But we haven't finished discussing the details, her mother protested. The Whitmores are coming for dinner tomorrow night. You need to prepare. Tomorrow? Natalie's voice rose. You arranged a dinner without even telling me about any of this? We thought it would be better to tell you in person, her father said. Natalie, please try to understand. This is a good opportunity for everyone. The restaurant business is struggling. This partnership could save everything we've built. Natalie felt guilt wash over her. Her father had worked his entire life to build his restaurant empire. Her whole family depended on that income. But marriage? An arranged marriage to a man she'd just met under the worst possible circumstances? I'll think about it, she said finally, heading for the door. But I'm not promising anything. She made it to the street before calling Rebecca, her best friend since college. You're not going to believe what just happened to me. Try me, Rebecca said. I've known you for 10 years. Nothing surprises me anymore. I almost died, met the perfect guy, and found out my parents want me to marry him in an arranged marriage that's really a business deal. There was a long pause. Okay, you win. I'm surprised. Start from the beginning. As Natalie walked through the darkening Brooklyn streets, explaining the entire insane afternoon to her best friend, she couldn't shake the memory of Jordan's arms around her in the rain, or the way he'd looked at her over coffee, or the text message still glowing on her phone screen. Tomorrow, she would have to face him again. Tomorrow, she would have to figure out if the connection she'd felt was real or just adrenaline and coincidence. Tomorrow, she would have to decide if she could go through with an arranged marriage to a man who made her heart race for all the wrong and all the right reasons. But tonight, she just wanted to stand in the rain again and pretend that sometimes, just sometimes, accidents could lead to something beautiful. The dinner revelation of Natalie stood in front of her closet the next evening, paralyzed by indecision. What did one wear to dinner with the family of the man you were supposedly arranged to marry, who also happened to be the same man who had almost killed you yesterday and then bought you coffee? Her phone buzzed. Another text from Jordan. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. My grandmother is very excited to meet you. Fair warning, she's intense but harmless. Stomach twisted. He didn't know. He had no idea that their coffee shop meeting, their easy conversation, their exchange numbers, all of it was tangled up in this arranged marriage disaster. She finally settled on a simple navy dress. Nothing too formal but respectful enough for a family dinner. Rebecca had come over for moral support and was currently sprawled across Natalie's bed, eating takeout and offering unsolicited advice. Maybe it won't be that bad, Rebecca said, twirling noodles around her chopsticks. I mean, you already like him. That's more than most arranged marriages start with. I liked him when he was just a random guy who almost ran me over, Natalie corrected. Now he's a random guy who almost ran me over and is part of a business transaction involving my future. When you put it that way, it does sound romantic, Rebecca said dryly. Natalie threw a pillow at her. You're not helping. I'm absolutely helping. I'm providing perspective in Chinese food. What more could you want? An hour later, Natalie pulled up to the Whitmore estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The house was exactly what she'd expected. Massive, elegant, and intimidating. Manicured lawns stretched in every direction. And the main house looked like something out of a magazine spread about how the other half lives. Her parents were already there, their car parked in the circular driveway. Natalie took a deep breath, checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one more time, and headed toward the front door. A butler actually answered. An honest-to-goodness butler in a formal suit who welcomed her inside with practiced courtesy. The foyer alone was bigger than her entire apartment, with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than she made in a year. The family is in the drawing room, the butler said, leading her through a hallway lined with oil paintings of stern-looking ancestors. Natalie heard the voices before she entered, her mother's animated Spanish mixing with unfamiliar laughs. Then she stepped into the room and locked eyes with Jordan Whitmore. His expression went through several stages in rapid succession: surprise, confusion, recognition, and finally, pure horror. Natalie, he said weakly, setting down his drink so quickly it sloshed onto the antique side table. Jordan, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. An elegant older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes stood up, beaming. How wonderful. You two know each other already? This is even better than we hoped. Grandmother Margaret. Perhaps we should let them speak privately, Jordan said, his voice tight. Nonsense, there's no need for privacy. You're going to be married soon anyway. Margaret Whitmore looked between them with satisfaction. Thomas Carolyn, you didn't mention that Natalie and Jordan had already met. We didn't know, Carolyn said, looking pleased with this development. Natalie, you should have told us you knew Jordan. It was recent, Natalie managed, her heart pounding. Very recent. Garden confrontation. Jordan practically dragged Natalie out to the garden, his grip on her elbow firm but not rough. The moment they were alone among the rose bushes and ornamental fountains, he rounded on her. You knew, he said accusingly. Yesterday, you knew exactly who I was. What? No, Natalie protested, anger flaring. I had no idea until I got home, and my parents dropped this bomb on me. Right, what a convenient coincidence. The flat tire, the accident, throwing yourself into my arms, the whole vulnerable act. Jordan's voice was bitter. My family has been trying to set up this arranged marriage for months. Suddenly you appear in my path, literally. Natalie felt like she'd been slapped. Vulnerable act? You think I staged a near-death experience to meet you? Women have done crazier things to get close to the Whitmore fortune, Jordan shot back. Are you serious right now? Natalie's voice rose dangerously. You egotistical, self-absorbed, pompous jerk. You think I want this marriage? You think I dreamed of being sold off like cattle to some arrogant billionaire who thinks every woman on the planet is scheming to trap him? Then why were you so friendly yesterday? Why all the laughing and the personal stories and the agreeing to see me again? Because I didn't know who you were. Natalie shouted. Because for 2 hours you were just a nice guy who almost hit me with his car and then bought me coffee. You were someone interesting and funny and real. But now I see what you really are. And what's that? Someone who thinks his money makes him irresistible. Someone who assumes every interaction is part of some master plan to get into his bank account. Natalie was shaking with rage now. Well, here's a newsflash. Jordan Whitmore. I don't want your money. I don't want your estate. And I sure as hell don't want to marry someone who thinks so little of me. The slap came before she could think about it, her palm connecting with his cheek with a sharp crack that echoed through the garden. They both froze. Jordan's hand went to his reddening cheek, his eyes wide with shock. Did you just hit me? He asked, his voice stunned. You deserved it, Natalie said, though her hand was stinging, and she was already regretting the impulse. And I should have done worse. They stood there for a long moment, both breathing hard, the anger slowly draining away to reveal something else underneath. Hurt, confusion, and the undeniable attraction that had been there from the beginning. You really didn't know? Jordan asked quietly. Of course I didn't know. Do you think I go around hugging random men in parking lots as part of elaborate marriage schemes? Natalie wrapped her arms around herself. My parents told me yesterday after I got home. I've had exactly 24 hours to process the fact that the first interesting guy I've met in years is somehow tangled up in this arranged marriage nightmare. Jordan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was starting to recognize as his tell when he was stressed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have accused you. It's just that my family has been pushing this business alliance for months, and I've been fighting them every step of the way. When I saw you here, I thought it was all part of some setup. Well, it wasn't. For the record, I've been fighting this just as hard as you have. Natalie looked back at the house where their families were probably making wedding plans. So what do we do now? I don't know. But I know I'm not marrying someone who slaps me on our first official meeting. Because I'm not marrying someone who thinks I'm a manipulative gold digger. They glared at each other for another moment. Then, inexplicably, Jordan started to laugh. It started as a chuckle but grew into genuine laughter that made his shoulders shake. What's so funny? Natalie demanded, though she could feel her own lips twitching. This whole thing. It's absurd. We meet by accident, have a great time together, and then discover we're caught in an arranged marriage neither of us wants. It's like a bad romantic comedy. Despite herself, Natalie started laughing too. The worst part is, I actually liked you yesterday. Before you became an arrogant jerk who accused me of being a schemer, I liked you too. Before you became violent. Jordan touched his cheek gingerly. You have a good arm, by the way. 3 brothers, Natalie explained. You learn to hold your own. The proposal, they sat down on a marble bench, the tension between them shifting into something more complicated. Not quite friendship, not quite animosity, but something in between. Look, Jordan said after a moment. I have a proposal. Not a marriage proposal, he added quickly, when Natalie's eyes widened. A business proposal. I'm listening. My grandmother flew in from Boston specifically for this wedding planning nonsense. She's been dreaming about my wedding since I was 12. If she finds out I'm trying to back out, she'll disinherit me and probably disown me for good measure. And I should care about your inheritance because your family will disown you too, Jordan said quietly. I heard your mother talking to mine inside. The restaurants are struggling. This marriage, this business alliance, it could save your father's entire empire. Natalie's stomach sank. She'd known the restaurants weren't doing great, but she hadn't realized things were that bad. So what's your proposal? She asked. 1 week. We pretend to be the perfect engaged couple for my grandmother's visit. She goes back to Boston happy. Our families are satisfied. And then we can figure out how to break this off gradually, quietly, without causing a family crisis. You want to pay me to fake an engagement? Jordan pulled out his phone and showed her a number. Consider it payment for your time and trouble. $50,000 for 1 week of pretending to tolerate me? Natalie stared at the number. $50,000 would pay off her student loans and cover her rent for a year. It would give her the financial cushion she'd never had, the security to maybe start her own design studio instead of scrambling for freelance work. 1 week, she said finally. 7 days of fake engagement, and then we're done. Deal. Jordan extended his hand. Partners in crime? Partners in surviving our insane families, Natalie corrected, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and when their eyes met, she felt that same spark from yesterday. The same attraction that had nothing to do with money or arrangements, and everything to do with genuine chemistry. We should probably head back inside before they send a search party, Jordan said. But he didn't let go of her hand, probably. Natalie didn't pull away either. It's for what it's worth, Jordan said softly. I really did want to see you again after yesterday. Before I knew about any of this arranged marriage business, the text I sent was genuine. For what it's worth, Natalie replied. I was going to say yes to dinner. Before I found out you were the man my parents wanted me to marry, they stood there for another moment, hands still clasped, the garden growing dark around them. Then Jordan gently released her and offered his arm. Shall we go convince our families that we're madly in love? Let's see how good an actress I am, Natalie said, taking his arm. But as they walked back toward the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that pretending to love Jordan Whitmore might be easier than she'd expected. The hard part would be remembering it was just pretend. Meeting the grandmother dinner was an elaborate affair with more courses than Natalie could count and more silverware than she knew what to do with. She followed Jordan's lead, using the right fork at the right time, and tried to look like she belonged in this world of wealth and privilege. Margaret Whitmore held court at the head of the table, asking pointed questions and observing everything with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. Natalie, dear, tell me how you and my grandson met, Margaret said. Delicately cutting her filet mignon, Natalie and Jordan exchanged glances. They hadn't prepared for this. It was raining, Natalie began, deciding to stick as close to the truth as possible. I was stranded with a flat tire. I happened to be driving by. Jordan continued smoothly. Saw her in trouble and stopped to help. How chivalrous, Margaret said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. And then what? We got coffee while waiting for the tow truck, Natalie said. Started talking and just clicked. It was the easiest conversation I'd ever had, Jordan added. Natalie was surprised to hear genuine warmth in his voice. She made me laugh. Made me feel like I could be myself instead of who everyone expected me to be.
Oh.
Margaret's expression softened slightly. And what is it you do, Natalie? I'm a graphic designer. Freelance mostly, working with small businesses on their branding. How enterprising. And your family? Your father owns several restaurants in Brooklyn, I understand. 3, Natalie confirmed. Italian cuisine, family recipes passed down through generations. The conversation continued through dinner, with both families watching the interaction between Natalie and Jordan like hawks studying prey. Natalie found herself falling into an easy rhythm with Jordan, finishing his sentences, laughing at his jokes, and even playfully arguing about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Absolutely not, Jordan insisted. It's a crime against Italian cuisine. It's a delicious crime, Natalie countered. Sweet and savory balance is a thing, not on pizza. It isn't. You're such a traditionalist, says the woman whose family has been making the same recipes for 4 generations. Margaret watched this exchange with growing interest. You'd bicker like an old married couple already. We're just passionate about our food opinions, Natalie said. Smiling after dinner, Margaret insisted on showing Natalie the family photo albums, pointing out pictures of Jordan as a child and regaling her with embarrassing stories. This is Jordan at 5. When he declared he was going to marry his kindergarten teacher, Margaret said, pointing to a photo of a small boy with a gap-toothed grin. In my defense, Mrs. Patterson was very nice and gave me extra cookies, Jordan protested.
And this is Jordan at 16?
Right after he drove his father's car into a fountain.
Oh.
The brakes failed. The brakes were fine. Your ego was overinflated. Natalie found herself genuinely enjoying the evening despite the strange circumstances. Margaret was sharp-tongued, but funny, clearly adored her grandson, and seemed to approve of Natalie more with each passing hour. As the evening wound down and families prepared to leave, Margaret pulled Natalie aside. I can see why Jordan chose you, the older woman said quietly. You're not impressed by the money or the name. You see him for who he really is. He's easy to see, Natalie said honestly. When he's not being defensive about gold diggers. Margaret laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her stern face. He told you about that, did he? His last girlfriend only wanted him for the trust fund. Made him quite cynical about relationships. I'm not after his money, Natalie said firmly. I know, dear. I can always tell, Margaret patted her hand. You two have something real. Don't let fear or family pressure ruin it. If only she knew, Natalie thought. That fear and family pressure were the only things holding this together. The photo shoot the next day. Margaret insisted on an engagement photo session. We need something for the announcement in the Times, she declared. The photographer, a cheerful woman named Diana, set them up on the beach near the Whitmore estate. The late afternoon sun cast everything in golden light, and the ocean provided a romantic backdrop.
That's perfect,
Diana called out. Now, Jordan, put your arms around Natalie's waist. Natalie leaned back into him. Trust him. Natalie felt Jordan's arms circle her waist, his chest solid and warm against her back. For the cameras, she told herself. This was all for the cameras. Beautiful, Diana said, clicking away. The chemistry between you two is incredible. Most engaged couples I photograph look stiff, but you two look like you're actually in love. Jordan's grip tightened slightly at those words, and Natalie wondered if he was thinking the same thing she was, that maybe they weren't acting as much as they thought. Let's try something more playful, Diana suggested. Jordan chased Natalie along the water. Natalie, run, but let him catch you. Natalie kicked off her shoes and ran toward the waves, her sundress billowing behind her. She could hear Jordan's footsteps gaining on her, and when his arms wrapped around her waist and spun her around, her laughter was completely genuine. Got you, he murmured in her ear, his breath warm against her neck. That was cheating, she laughed. You have longer legs. All's fair in love and photo shoots, Jordan said, but he didn't put her down. They stood there in the surf, his arms around her, both breathing hard and smiling. For a moment, everything else faded away. The arrangement, the families, the complicated web of expectations. For a moment, it was just them. Perfect, Diana called. Hold that exactly. The photo shoot continued for another hour, and Natalie found herself relaxing into Jordan's touch, laughing at his quiet jokes. enjoying the way he protectively guided her across rocky areas when Diana finally called it done. Both Natalie and Jordan were quiet as they gathered their things. "Want to grab dinner?" Jordan asked as they reached his car. "We should probably discuss how this week is going to work." Sure, Natalie agreed, though her heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with staged photos. Unexpected honesty, they ended up at a small seafood restaurant overlooking the water, far from anywhere their families might find them. The casual atmosphere was a relief after the formality of the estate. "That was intense," Natalie said once they'd ordered. "The photo shoot or the entire last 24 hours? Both." She fiddled with her napkin. "Jordan, what are we really doing here?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was trying to figure something out. "I don't know," he admitted finally. 6 days ago, I would have called this whole situation insane. But now, after spending time with you, after seeing how you handle my grandmother and laugh at my childhood, photos and look at me like I'm more than just a trust fund with a pulse. Now I'm starting to think maybe we shouldn't be so quick to end this." Natalie's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that what happened today, that wasn't entirely acting. At least not for me." Jordan reached across the table and took her hand. "The connection we felt yesterday at the coffee shop, it's still there. Maybe stronger because now we've been through something ridiculous together. Jordan, we barely know each other. Let's fix that. We have a week, right? A week of pretending to be engaged. What if we use that time to actually get to know each other? Really know each other, not just surface small talk." "And then what?" Natalie asked. "At the end of the week, we just decide whether to get married for real?" "That's insane." "People have married for worse reasons," Jordan pointed out. "At least we're attracted to each other. At least we make each other laugh. At least we're being honest about what this is. A business arrangement that might turn into something real? Or something real that started as a business arrangement." "Natalie, I've dated plenty of women. Models, lawyers, socialites. Every single one of them saw Jordan Whitmore, real estate heir. You're the first person in years who's seen just Jordan. The guy who wanted to be a teacher, who makes terrible coffee but great pancakes, who still gets embarrassed about his childhood fountain incident. You're asking me to consider actually marrying you," Natalie said slowly. "Based on one coffee date and a photo shoot, I'm asking you to give this a chance. Give us a chance. 1 week of genuine getting to know you time. If at the end of it we both feel like this could work, then we move forward. If not, we break it off, and at least we tried." Natalie looked down at their joined hands. This was crazy. This went against everything she'd ever believed about taking relationships slow, being practical, making sensible decisions. But when she looked up at Jordan, saw the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, she found herself considering it. 1 week, she said finally. Complete honesty. No more games, no more pretending. We use this time to figure out if what we're feeling is real or just adrenaline and good lighting. Deal, Jordan said, his smile transforming his face. And Natalie? For the record, I think it's real. I think it's been real since you threw yourself into my arms in the rain. They ate dinner and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Their childhoods and dreams and fears and quirks. Natalie felt something shift inside her. Maybe arranged marriages didn't have to be cold business transactions. Maybe sometimes fate intervened in the strangest ways. And maybe, just maybe, the man who had almost run her over was exactly the man she was supposed to be with. 6 weeks later, Natalie stood in the bridal suite of the Plaza Hotel. Staring at her reflection in the floor-length mirror, the ivory silk dress fit perfectly. Elegant in its simplicity, with delicate lace sleeves, and a train that would flow behind her as she walked down the aisle. Her grandmother's pearl earrings caught the light, and fresh flowers were woven through her upswept hair. I still can't believe this is happening, Rebecca said, adjusting Natalie's veil for what had to be the 20th time. 6 weeks ago, you were complaining about being single forever, and now you're getting married. Life comes at you fast, Natalie replied, smoothing down the silk fabric nervously. The past 6 weeks had been a whirlwind. After that dinner where they'd agreed to give their relationship a real chance, Natalie and Jordan had spent every possible moment together. They'd had coffee dates and dinner dates, walked through Central Park, visited art museums, and spent lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper in bed at his penthouse apartment. She'd learned that Jordan was terrible at cooking anything except pancakes, that he sang off-key in the shower, but had perfect pitch when reading to kids at the local library where he volunteered, that he genuinely loved teaching and had been secretly taking education courses online for years. Jordan had discovered that Natalie named all her plants and talked to them daily, that she had an impressive collection of vintage concert posters, that she could sketch portraits with stunning accuracy, and that beneath her independent exterior was someone who craved partnership and emotional connection. They'd also had their first real fight 3 weeks ago. When Jordan had tried to pay off her student loans without asking, "I was just trying to help," he'd said, frustrated by assuming I can't handle my own finances. Natalie had shot back. "I'm not a charity case, Jordan. I never said you were. I just thought it would make your life easier. My life was fine before you showed up with your checkbook and savior complex." They'd spent 2 days not speaking, both stubborn and hurt. Finally, Jordan had shown up at her apartment at midnight with takeout and an apology. "I'm sorry," he'd said simply. "You were right. I overstepped. I've never had to think about money the way most people do, and sometimes I don't understand boundaries around it. But I want to learn. I want to understand your perspective." That conversation, that willingness to admit fault and learn, had somehow made Natalie more certain about marrying him. They could fight and make up. They could navigate disagreements without destroying what they'd built. 5 minutes, the wedding coordinator called through the door. Natalie's mother, Caroline, rushed in, already crying and ruining her mascara. "Mia, you look so beautiful, just like I always dreamed." "Thanks, Mom," Natalie said, hugging her carefully to avoid wrinkling the dress. "Your father is already crying," Caroline added with a watery laugh. "He's been emotional all morning. Says his little girl is all grown up." Natalie's younger brother Danny poked his head in. "Ready to do this, sis?" Jordan's at the altar looking like he might pass out from nervousness. "Is he okay?" Natalie asked, sudden worry flooding through her. "He's fine, just nervous, which is actually kind of sweet. Shows he cares." Danny grinned. "Though he did ask me 3 times if I had the rings." The ceremony, the plaza's grand ballroom, had been transformed into a romantic garden paradise. White roses and peonies covered every surface. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and soft candlelight gave everything a warm glow. The aisle was scattered with white petals, and at the end stood an elaborate arch covered in trailing jasmine. And beneath that arch stood Jordan Whitmore, looking devastatingly handsome in his tailored navy suit. When the music changed and Natalie appeared on her father's arm, Jordan's expression made her breath catch. Pure joy mixed with awe, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Thomas Brooks walked his daughter down the aisle slowly, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I'm so proud of you, Natalie," he whispered. "You've found someone who truly loves you." When they reached Jordan, Thomas placed Natalie's hand in his with a firm nod. "Take care of my daughter." "With everything I have," Jordan promised, his voice thick with emotion. The ceremony was officiated by Father Rodriguez from Natalie's childhood parish, a compromise that had satisfied both families. He spoke about love being a daily choice, about partnership requiring vulnerability and trust, about the blessing of finding someone who sees you completely. When it came time for vows, they'd chosen to write their own, despite Margaret's protests that traditional vows were more appropriate. Jordan went first, pulling out a worn piece of paper with shaking hands. "Natalie," he began, his voice carrying clearly, "6 weeks ago, I thought I had my life planned out. Everything was organized, predictable, safe. And then you literally crashed into my world and changed everything." Soft laughter rippled through their guests. "You've taught me that the best things in life aren't planned, they're discovered. You've shown me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's courage. You've proved that sometimes the most impractical decisions turn out to be the wisest ones." Jordan's voice grew stronger. "You've seen me at my worst, arrogant and accusatory on our second meeting. And somehow, you still chose to love me.
Natalie?
Felt tears starting to fall. I promised to never try to solve your problems without asking first, Jordan continued. Getting knowing laughs from both families who'd heard about their loan fight. I promised to support your dreams even when they involve opening a design studio in Brooklyn instead of Manhattan. I promised to let you be independent while still being there to catch you when you need it. He folded the paper, his eyes locked on hers. But most importantly, I promised to love you exactly as you are while growing alongside you. You saved me from a life I didn't want. Thank you for being brave enough to take this leap with me. Natalie was openly crying now, not caring about her makeup. When Father Rodriguez nodded to her, she took a shaky breath. Jordan, she began, her voice wavering with emotion. I used to think that love at first sight only happened in movies. I was wrong. I fell for you in a coffee shop parking lot in the rain, and I've been falling deeper every day since. She looked out at their gathered families and friends. You've shown me that it's okay to accept help sometimes without losing yourself. You've taught me that compromise doesn't mean giving up who you are. It means becoming better through partnership. Her voice strengthened. I promise to call you out when you're being oblivious about real-world problems. I promise to let you spoil me occasionally when I need it. I promise to support your dream of teaching, even if it means our kids come home covered in paint and glitter every day. More laughter from the guests. I promise to love your family as my own, even when your grandmother reorganizes my kitchen, Natalie said, getting an approving nod from Margaret in the front row. And I promise to love you through whatever comes next. The easy parts and the hard parts, the planned moments, and the ones that crash into us unexpectedly. She squeezed Jordan's hands. You've already given me the greatest adventure of my life, and we're just getting started. Father Rodriguez smiled broadly. Jordan, do you take Natalie to be your wife, to love and cherish through all circumstances, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Jordan said firmly. Absolutely and forever. Natalie, do you take Jordan to be your husband, to love and cherish through all circumstances, for as long as you both shall live? Natalie looked into Jordan's eyes, remembering their first meeting in the rain. Their argument in his grandmother's garden, their first real kiss on the terrace of his penthouse. All the moments that had led them here. I do, she said, her voice strong and certain. With all my heart. The rings were exchanged, both sets of hands trembling slightly with emotion. Then Father Rodriguez pronounced them husband and wife, and Jordan didn't wait for permission. He cupped Natalie's face and kissed her like it was the first time, and the last time, and every perfect moment in between. Their guests erupted in cheers and applause. Natalie barely heard them. All she could focus on was the man she'd just married and the way he was looking at her like she'd hung every star in the sky. Low. Mrs. Whitmore, Jordan murmured against her lips. Hello, Mr. Whitmore, Natalie murmured back. How does it feel to be married to a woman who slapped you the second time you met? Like the luckiest man alive, Jordan said, spinning her around as flower petals rained down around them. The reception was elegant and joyful. Exactly what both families had envisioned. The ballroom sparkled with thousands of white lights. Tables were draped in cream silk, and centerpieces of roses and peonies perfumed the air. Natalie and Jordan's first dance was To It Last by Etta James. And as they swayed together, Natalie couldn't help but laugh at how perfectly the lyrics fit their story. What's funny? Jordan asked, pulling her closer. Just thinking about how we got here, Natalie said. If someone had told me 6 weeks ago that I'd be dancing at my own wedding to a man who almost ran me over, I would have recommended therapy. If someone had told me the woman I nearly hit with my car would become my wife, I would have checked myself into a hospital, Jordan replied, grinning as other couples joined them on the dance floor. Natalie found herself watching their families mingling and laughing together. Thomas and Jordan's father were deep in conversation about the restaurant trail, state partnership that would benefit both families. Carolyn and Jordan's mother were already planning holiday gatherings and dropping hints about grandchildren. Margaret Whitmore held court at a corner table, telling anyone who would listen about how she'd known from the moment she met Natalie that she was perfect for Jordan. Your grandmother is rewriting history, Natalie observed. She does that, Jordan said fondly. In her version, she orchestrated this entire thing. Maybe she did, Natalie mused. Maybe that's why she flew in so quickly, why she pushed so hard for the engagement photos and the wedding. Maybe she saw something we didn't. You think my grandmother is a secret matchmaker? I think your grandmother is terrifyingly perceptive, and we should never underestimate her. The toasts began after dinner. Jordan's brother William told embarrassing stories about Jordan's previous dating disasters and his declarations that he'd never marry young. And yet here we are, William concluded, raising his champagne glass, celebrating Jordan's marriage to a woman he's known for 6 weeks. Just goes to show, when you know, you know. Welcome to the family, Natalie. You're stuck with us now. Danny's best man speech was equally touching and embarrassing. Natalie has always been the practical one, he said. The one who planned everything, who never took risks, who swore she'd never get married young. And here she is, married to a guy she met when he almost turned her into a pancake on the highway. Laughter rippled through the crowd. It just goes to show that sometimes love doesn't follow your plan. Sometimes it crashes into your life when you least expect it. And all you can do is hold on and enjoy the ride. The cake cutting was perfect, until Jordan deliberately smeared frosting on Natalie's nose, earning him a playful threat and delighted laughter from their guests. You're never going to let me forget that slap, are you? Jordan asked as he carefully cleaned the frosting from Natalie's face. Never, Natalie confirmed cheerfully. It's going into every anniversary speech forever. As the evening progressed, Natalie stole quiet moments with Jordan between dancing with relatives and greeting guests. Each stolen kiss, each whispered joke, each shared glance reinforced her certainty that they'd made the right choice. Any regrets? Rebecca asked when she found Natalie touching up her lipstick in the luxurious restroom. None, Natalie said firmly. I think you're making the most beautiful decision I've ever seen, Rebecca said, hugging her friend. And Jordan looks at you like you're the answer to every question he never knew he was asking. When the DJ announced the last dance, Jordan pulled Natalie close. Ready to start our forever? He asked. I've been ready since you spun me around in the surf during that photo shoot, Natalie admitted. I've been ready since you threw yourself into my arms in the rain, Jordan countered, as they swayed to the music. Surrounded by everyone they loved, Natalie thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. An accident that wasn't really an accident. An arranged marriage that became real love. Two people who had fought against fate until they realized fate had been right all along. Thank you, Jordan murmured into her hair. For what? For hugging me that day in the rain? For slapping some sense into me? For giving us a chance when everything seemed impossible? Pulled back to look at her. For choosing me every day, even when I make terrible coffee and try to solve problems with my checkbook.